Hmm, come closer, dear. This one is about a man named Tom, 20 years old, drove up to the cabin alone and thought nothing of it. The kind of young man who needed quiet the way other people needed company. Not loneliness, not running from something, just a need for stillness that the city never gave him. He was taking a week away. That was all he intended to do. Stay in his family's old cabin on the edge of Blackmere Lake, sleep late, read, walk the tree line, and be back in the city by the following Sunday with enough quiet stored up to last him through winter. Blackmere had other ideas. It always did. The lake had been taking people for a very long time, and Tom, 20 years old, alone with his window down and the pine smell coming in, and not a single reason to be afraid, was exactly what it had been waiting for. The road to the cabin thinned as the trees thickened. Tom had been here as a child. He remembered the road being wider, or maybe he had just been smaller then, and everything had seemed larger. The trees, the sky between them, the cabin itself when it finally appeared. The lake appeared first, through a gap in the pines. Just a glimpse. Dark water, flat, not catching the last of the evening light the way water should. Sitting there in the dark of the tree shadow, like something that had no interest in reflections. Tom looked at it through the gap. For just a moment, he had the feeling it was looking back. Then the road curved and the trees closed and the cabin was ahead. He told himself it was just a lake. He parked and got out and carried his bags inside. The cabin was exactly as he remembered. Stone fireplace, wooden floors, the smell of old wood and pine resin, and something faintly damp that never fully left, no matter what season it was. His grandfather's fishing rod still in the corner. The same cracked mug on the shelf his grandmother had always used. Tom built a fire. He made food. He read. He let the quiet settle around him the way he had been hoping it would. At some point, he looked up at the window. The lake was visible through it, just the surface, black, still, no moon catching it. He had not noticed before how directly it faced the water, how the window framed it like a painting of nothing, just black water and the dark tree line beyond. He went to bed. He dreamed of something moving below the surface, something large, something that knew he was there. When he woke at 3 a.m, the dream was gone, but the feeling was not. He went to the lake in the morning because he always had, and because there was no reason not to. The mist was still on the water. The tree line reflected in the surface, and the surface was perfectly still, and the whole thing looked like a photograph of itself. Too composed, too deliberate, the stillness of something holding its breath rather than the stillness of something at rest. Tom stood at the edge. He looked at the water, and then he saw it, below the surface, in the deep dark where the lake bed dropped away, a shape, enormous, slow, not a fish, not a log, not anything with a natural explanation, a shape that moved the way shadows move when a cloud passes over the sun, purposeful and boneless and aware. It passed beneath him. It did not surface, but as it passed, the water at Tom's feet moved, a slow push outward, like breath, like something below had exhaled. Tom stepped back from the edge. He went inside and locked the door and told himself he had not seen anything. He almost believed it. He found the box on the second day, under the floorboard beneath his grandfather's bed, the loose one he had always known about as a child, the one his grandfather would never explain. Tom had assumed it was money or documents or the dull practical secrets of old age. It was newspapers, clippings, decades of them, going back as far as 1923. All of them about the lake, disappearances, 7 of them over the years, fishermen, a family of 4 in 1961, a teenage boy in 1987, all of them last seen at the water's edge, none of them found. And in the oldest clipping, a name, Mara Voss, a woman who had lived in this cabin, who had walked into the lake in the winter of 1923 and not come back, who the town had said drowned, but whose body had never surfaced, whose name appeared in every subsequent account, written in the margins of the clippings in his grandfather's handwriting, again and again and again. She is still in there. She is still angry. Do not go near the water after dark. He should have left. He knew that. He stood at the cabin window at midnight, and he knew with absolute clarity that he should get in his car and drive and not stop until the trees were far behind him, and there was city noise and city light on all sides, and the lake was 2 hours away. He did not leave. He stood at the window because there was something at the water's edge, a figure, pale, still, standing at the exact point where the lake met the land, facing the cabin, facing the window, facing Tom, a woman, or the shape of one, the suggestion of one, something that wore the memory of a woman the way a coat wears the memory of the person who last had it on, imprecise, ill-fitting, wrong at the edges. She did not move. Tom did not move. They stayed like that for a long time. Then the clouds moved across the moon and the lake went dark, and when the light came back, she was gone. Just water, just the tree line, just the cabin window between him and the night. Tom sat down on the floor and stayed there until morning. Dawn showed him what the dark had hidden. He went out because he had to, because staying inside was its own kind of madness, and he needed air and light and the ordinary sounds of birds in the pines to remind himself what ordinary felt like. The lake was still. The mist was back. At the shoreline where she had stood, the mud was marked, handprints, not footprints, handprints, as if something had crawled out of the water and crouched there, the fingers long, the spacing wrong, the depth of the impression suggesting something far heavier than any person. They let out of the lake. They stopped at the point where the mud met the grass, and floating at the water's edge, perfectly still, a bird, dead, not injured, not caught on anything, just dead, floating face down the way a thing floats when it has been drained of whatever keeps it alive. Tom looked at the handprints. He looked at the bird. He looked at the lake. He thought about the box, about Mara Voss, about his grandfather's handwriting. She is still in there. She is still angry. There was more than newspapers in the box. Underneath the clippings, wrapped in oilcloth, a journal, his grandfather's, going back 40 years. Tom sat by the fire and read it cover to cover, and by the time he finished, the fire had burned low, and the window behind him showed a sky going from black to gray. His grandfather had known for decades, had investigated quietly, privately, the way old men investigate things they're afraid of, carefully, at a distance, never telling anyone. Had found accounts of Mara Voss in town records, had spoken to old people who remembered, had pieced together what had happened in the winter of 1923. She had not simply drowned. She had gone in deliberately, carrying something, an object. The accounts described it differently each time. A box, a jar, a bundle wrapped in cloth. that she had taken to the deepest part of the lake and gone down with it. Nobody knew what it was, but whatever it was, it had bound her there. And at the deepest point of the lake, marked on a rough, hand-drawn map at the back of the journal, his grandfather had written 5 words beside the X. It is bound to what it carried down. He was not a diver. He had a mask and a snorkel from the cabin shed, and a waterproof torch he had found in the kitchen drawer, and approximately no training, and approximately no plan beyond going down as far as he could and finding whatever Mara Voss had carried into the water 100 years ago. He stood at the edge. The lake looked back at him. The water was cold. He could feel it from where he stood, the cold coming off the surface the way it does when something below the warm layer is very, very cold. Not the natural cold of a deep lake in autumn. Something else. Tom pulled on the mask. He thought about the handprints in the mud. He thought about the shape in the deep water, the slow, enormous shadow. He thought about the bird floating. He went in anyway. The cold took his breath first. He went under, and the world became dark water, and the sound of his own heartbeat and the beam of the torch cutting a pale channel through the black. The surface above receded. The lake bed below was invisible, too deep, too dark, the torch not reaching it. He kicked down, and the shape came, not from below, from the side, that enormous slow movement in the dark water, circling him the way something circles when it is deciding, not attacking, not retreating, just moving around him in that boneless, deliberate way. And the cold that came off it as it passed was extraordinary. The cold of deep water and old rage and something that had not rested in a very long time. Tom kept going down, below, far below, further than he should have been able to see. The light, faint, pale green, sitting on the lake bed like something that had never been put out. He went toward it. The lake bed was silt and stone and cold. The light came from the box, small, iron, old. Old beyond what iron usually managed underwater, as if the water had preserved it or the thing inside it had. Wrapped in chains that had not rusted, sealed with a lock that had no keyhole. Tom's hands closed around it, and Mara Voss came. Not the pale suggestion of a woman he had seen at the water's edge. Something else. Something vast and furious and made of cold water and 100 years of anger. A shape that filled the dark above him, that blocked what little light reached down from the surface, that had burning pale eyes in the midst of all that dark water, and fixed them on Tom with an intelligence that was ancient and absolutely certain of what it wanted. She wanted the box. She wanted it back. She had been waiting a very long time for someone to come down here and give it to her. He did not give it to her. He understood, in the way you understand things when you're 20 feet underwater with your lungs burning and a 100-year-old spirit filling the water above you, that giving it back was not the answer. His grandfather's words, "It is bound to what it carried down." She had not brought it here to keep it safe. She had brought it here because it was the thing that had bound her, the thing that kept her here, kept her angry, kept her taking anyone who came too close to the water. The box was not her treasure. It was her prison. Tom grabbed a rock from the lake bed. He swung it at the lock. Mara Voss screamed, a sound that was not a sound, a frequency that hit the water and hit Tom's chest and hit the silt on the lake bed and sent it billowing upward in great dark clouds. He swung again. The lock shattered. The box opened. And the light that came out of it was not pale green. It was white. Total. The kind of light that has nothing to do with anything natural. The light of something being released after a very long time in the dark. The light went up, through the water, through the dark, through the cold, straight up, a column of white that hit the surface and broke it and kept going. The chain came apart, the box dissolved, and Mara Voss, she came apart too, but not the way the demon comes apart when it is defeated. Not violently, not in rage. She unwound. The vast, furious shape in the water softened and spread, and for just a moment, just a second, Tom saw her face. Not the terrible thing it had been, a woman's face, young, tired, 100 years of anger leaving it all at once, the way tension leaves a face in sleep. She looked at the light. She went into it. The water around Tom went from black to dark blue to something almost clear. The cold lifted. The pressure lifted. The vast and terrible weight of something old and furious and trapped simply left. Blackmere Lake, for the first time in a very long time, was just a lake. He broke the surface, gasping. The air hit him like something physical, cold and pine-sharp and enormously, ordinarily alive. He floated on his back for a moment because he had to, because his arms had nothing left, because the sky above him was gray going to pale blue, and the trees around the lake were just trees, and the water beneath him was just water. Still. Clear. He could see the lake bed from the surface. Just silt. Just stone. Just the ordinary dark of a deep lake with the morning light beginning to reach it. No shape in the deep. No cold. No weight. Tom floated. He breathed. He stayed like that until his heart slowed and his arms came back, and the sky above him finished its journey from gray to blue. Then he swam to shore. He was packed and in the car before 8. He did not stay for breakfast. He did not walk the tree line or sit on the porch or do any of the quiet things he had come here to do. He put his bags in the car and he drove, and he did not look back. Not at first, but at the gap in the trees, the same gap where he had first seen the lake on the way in. He slowed. He looked. Blackmere in the morning light. Bright. Still. The kind of still that is actually still, not holding its breath, not waiting, not watching. The trees reflected in it perfectly. A bird crossed the surface and left a small V of ripples behind it. Just a lake in the morning with the light on it, and the woods around it, and nothing beneath it but water, and stone and silt, and the ordinary dark of ordinary deep places. Tom looked at it for a long moment. Then he drove. The trees closed behind him. The lake disappeared. The road opened up ahead, and the forest thinned, and somewhere ahead of that was the city and noise and light and all the ordinary things that ordinary life was made of. Tom defeated it. He went down into the dark, and he did the thing nobody else had thought to do. He did not take it from her. He opened it. Sometimes the cruelest prison is the one you cannot see. The one you have been carrying so long you forgot there was ever anything else. I'll be right here when you come back, in my chair, where I always am.